everyone. So you have met and watched Jayne Tuttle, and what a fantastic thing that has been. Thank you so much for that performance, Jayne.
Thank you. Thank you for your performance as an audience. You're amazing.
Now, as you probably know by now, Jayne's performance is based on her first memoir called Paris or Die, which is what, 2019, 2018? Yeah.
December 2019. So,
right.
Yeah.
And then there is another one called My Sweet Guillotine, which takes up the story from the point where Jayne just stopped tonight. And there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
I'm a bit worried about how much to tell about what follows.
I'm not that worried about spoilers because actually Helen Garner said this to me, not to drop names, but she did say to me, like, who's going to think it's spoiler to say that there's it's so intense and weird that you kind of, there's no way of spoiling it basically because you need to know more, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the things that you then go on to develop are, you go into a lot of detail about your rehabilitation, your relationship with your father and the incredibly touching way in which he had to redefine himself and nurse you, which I thought was incredible. The aftermath of your breakup with Adrian, a new relationship, and then, I don't know why I'm telling you this, you should be telling us.
Really? Sounds excellent.
But perhaps you could tell us what was the legal aftermath of the accident, because that's important.
Yeah, so after the accident, of course, it was so odd what happened, and I think I really just thought it was my fault. I'm tall. I was wearing high heels on this old stairwell where, it was built in the lift was basically inserted into the middle of, this 1930s building in the 1950s. So it just had a little banister really and a sort of protection that went below it, probably thinking that, the mid-century little Parisian probably was like this, but I towered over it. And so in My Sweet Guillotine, I came back to Paris and tried to go on with my life as before, but over time realised that this was pretty harrowing and it could happen to somebody else. And so I thought about, well, actually, my new friend, M, said, who had worked in insurance, said, do you think you should, say something about this to someone? Maybe we should talk to a lawyer. And I said, I don't want to do that really. But he said, well, that'll at least get them to wake up a little, or, do something maybe about the dangerousness of that building. So I went down this path I went and met a lawyer, and he said, you're crazy to even try to do this with the legal system in France, so different to Australia. They will make you work for every cent, and it will be harrowing and hard. Awful. So I decided not to, but then it happened to somebody else. So it happened to a young kid and he didn't survive in a very, basically the same building. There's only, they may be the only two buildings in Paris that are this particular style. And so that propelled me to go ahead and do a lawsuit, actually sue the building, which was its own kind of adventure in a weird way. I had to act. I had to use all my acting. I wasn't acting anymore because of my accident, my injuries.
That was such a gruelling passage, you doing the reenactment for them of what you'd been through, and it all came flooding back, didn't it?
Yeah. Actually, it was amazing. You couldn't make it up. So in order to convince the men of the insurance companies and the copropriété, the property, that I had really suffered, I had to really ham up, what had happened to me. I'm a very optimistic person and choose to sort of, see things in the positive, but I was asked to really focus on the negative. And in fact, I actually had to reenact the accident. I had to go back to the building and actually play out what happened in order for these people to believe what had happened, which was, as you can imagine, the most harrowing thing you can do if you've had some kind of nightmare accident. That was a very interesting theatrical moment, that performance.
We should talk about the theatricality of what you've just done for us. So is there, in terms of the école and the things that you've learned, is there a technical term for that performance of the acting out of the memoir and the fact that you're alone on the stage and you have this single prop, or I suppose two if you count the chair, but is that a method of some sort?
Yeah, it's so funny. I've been doing this show for a couple of years now, and I haven't really questioned why, because it was just an opportunity that came about during lockdown. There was a director who'd been to the Lecoq School in the 70s in lockdown down the road from me, and we had this dead theatre just sitting there, and so we decided, let's do something. Why don't we make this into a play? And but I realised that I remember when I was at Lecoq in my first, it was like maybe the first week. As two students, ex-students, came to the school and did this show, and through their bodies, these two people told this story of this old couple, and I remember at the end of it thinking, oh my gosh, I saw this house, I saw these old people, I saw the way they dressed, I saw their children, I saw all this, and it was just the two of them with their bodies, and it really had an impact on me. I remember thinking, that's amazing. I wonder if I could learn to do that. And so now I find myself attempting to do that. And it's a bit of a sort of come full circle feeling.
But it's a long time on your own in front of us. I was thinking about the amount of memory that must go into it, and then the amount of concentration to maintain it, the physical effort of it. So how do you feel now? How do you feel 20 minutes after you've done it?
I'm so relieved. It's always such a relief.
Is it like exams?
It's really hard. I think it was Shannon, or we were talking in the foyer before about, I find it, I'm really good with lines as an actor. And if it's somebody's text, I'm so respectful of the text. When it's my own text, it's different. The lines are sort of like quicksand. I feel like I know them, and then suddenly they sort of fall away beneath me, and I want to change them, and is it clear that I did this? I missed that bit. Tomorrow I'm doing a panel about omission in memoir, and this play is there's so much omitted that sometimes I worry that the story is not coming across, but John is constantly like, we so get it. Just don't, it's okay. So I think I added a few lines in tonight because I was like, I don't think they know that I don't want to go back to Australia. I'll just put it in.
Did you find that in the writing of the memoir itself, that thing that writers do about leaving things out so that the reader can find them for themselves?
Yeah, well, again, this is something that we'll really talk. I'm so intrigued to talk to these three writers tomorrow about this, because this feeling, I think, the whole iceberg thing, I suppose, how much do you trust that your audience is with you and understands what's going on? And so often we overdo it because we think people aren't getting it. But, Hemingway said this thing that, if you know it as the writer, then that's almost enough. You're actually communicating without having the words on the page, which, it's a tricky thing.
Isn't it a jazz thing? It's the notes that you leave out.
Yeah,
notes
right.
You don't play.
Thanks. I'm going to steal that for tomorrow.
What about the physical book that you had with you? It seemed to me that sometimes during the performance it was working like a script, like you were reading from it. Sometimes you appeared to go to the book to find out what happens next. And then sometimes it was a physical prop that you were flinging around. How's the book working in your head?
Yeah, when we first began, I remember thinking how interesting it would be to use the book as it's a tormentor, and it's a best friend, and and I'm performing, but I'm the writer as well as the person that I'm performing, as well as myself. So I thought, in fact, at La Mama, I did the show at La Mama last year, and we didn't use the book. We decided the book had kind of started to become in the way, and there were a few times when I thought, am I just using it to remember my lines? And it seemed to not really work in the theatre space like that. And so we tossed it. But a few people came that had seen the show before with the book and said, I really miss the book. there's something about the book in the show that brings an extra level of play. And so that's what I'm working on a lot at the moment. We were talking before about as it keeps evolving, I'm really trying to work more and more with the book as an actual, as a live thing. What can that bring? Haven't investigated that far enough yet.
And the chair's working nearly as hard in this performance.
Yes.
But what about, you mentioned then about the idea of, you are the performer and the writer. And in these memoirs, there's this very interesting thing that you do where you externalise Jayne. Jayne is a character, and a lot of the people in your life, particularly in Paris, are these characters you've created. And for the reader, you lose touch with the distinction between who the real people are and who the characters are. Why did you do that? And what do you think it represents?
I was just talking with Joe before outside about the Lecoq School and what I took from it and what I still take from it. And one of the most amazing things about that school is that you worked very, very hard, but it's always about the work. You're told your work is boring constantly. You work all week, night and day, and then you get up and then, you've made this piece of theatre that you think has got something, and then it's like boring. After a minute, you're asked to leave the stage. Just please leave. And I remember thinking how amazing it was that I didn't... I mean, you'd be upset and you would probably cry sometimes, a lot. But it never felt like it was about you. It was not. It was always the work that was being judged. And so there was this incredible respect for you as an artist. And I just realised before... Well, actually, I think I realised when you asked me that question how that means that... I think that's carried on into the writing because it means I feel like I'm not as I see the work as work, and it's not me. It's the work. And so the characters and the me, it's not me. It's me performing the role of me putting the role of me in a book, me remembering and using that as my material and talking about real things. But it's very much work outside of myself, if that makes sense. That just occurred to me today, so I haven't really thought that through very well.
And then, so if the work is outside of you, we, the audience, are sitting here in the darkness behind those lights. How aware are you of us?
I'm so aware. I'm aware of every little pore of every person in the audience.
It's quite disconcerting.
It's very... Well, it's the wonderful thing about performing and writing. Writing, we're sitting at home we're sitting in our little space alone, and our work, we don't have that perception of our work. We write our book and the person takes the book home and has their own private experience with it. But in the theatre, you are this is a life and death. This moment is gone. It was here a minute ago and it's gone. And so there's this beautiful sense of sharing. Tonight was so beautiful. There was such a warm feeling in this room, and it was the energy, the cumulative energy of everybody here. And so that it makes it extremely fun. And also absolutely pants wettingly terrifying. There's nowhere to hide. That's
a bit of a worry for us, though, because it means you can never watch theatre again and assume that you've disappeared into the darkness.
I never do. I'm so participatory as an audience member. No, it's not like that. But if you're ever on stage, you can be assured that I will be very awake and, But I was telling Jock before, actually, I remember I did this show at La Mama, and of course it was the show that they were filming. It's always the way. For some reason, that it was actually the lowest attendance that night. There was only sort of 6 or 7, maybe there was 10 people in the audience, and there was a man sitting in the front like this. And the funny thing, I know because I've performed so much that I know that you never judge that, because the person who's sitting like this is actually probably out of hearing and is trying desperately to hear everything you're saying. And this guy was actually fine. He came up to me afterwards and was like, oh, I really like that. He just was a listener that was like, looked like he was hating you, hating every moment of the boringest show that's ever been made.
That looks a lot like you teaching someone how to behave like an Australian.
Mate, don't go to the theatre. It's fucking boring. Some chick up there with fucking pins in my eyes.
So I just to extend that idea a bit further, there was a moment in the performance when you were at a very crucial point and I heard a glass fall over up there. Did you hear it?
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
what's the mental process?
Oh, that was a glass falling. One of the great things, yeah, fantastic. It's alive. Isn't it exciting?
So it's
anything could happen. Yeah, no. Okay. No, it's great. And my job should really be to respond to that. You know, like I don't think I did. I would get in big trouble with Lecoq if I did that. But baby cries, you don't just ignore it. You know, maybe you don't say, "Oh, the baby's crying," but you know, this is a live space. This is a living, breathing space. You know, I'm with you, and you're with me, and we're together. It's not. I'm not in a glass box.
Now, Jayne, with your permission, I feel like I've talked much too much tonight. And it's late, and I'd really love for anybody here to ask Jayne about the performance, about the memoirs, about the 2 books, about anything you like.
Sorry?
Snapshot of mum.
Oh, you'd like me to give you a snapshot of my mum? Oh, thank you. Oh, I had a beautiful mum. She was just a really lovely, warm, giving person. She was a nurse. She studied. She studied before there was studies that were allowing nurses to study. She was doing a PhD working with chemically addicted women at the Mercy when she got cancer, and it really was that sudden. It was like, oh, yeah, we're just sitting here. Oh, by the way, you've got cancer and you're going to die in 6 months to 2 years. So she was just it's scary to sort of try to put words to her at all in the books, and very scary to sort of try and evoke her. But that's the only. I remember when I would go with her to chemo, I remember I'd watch the women, all the things that they would do to support, you know, and I'd think, God, I'm such a dick, you know, I'm just a dick actor. I don't do anything for anyone else. And I remember thinking, well, maybe you could maybe you could make someone smile, or make a clown show or something one day, so there is a little, that sounds lame, but there is a little part of me that I can kind of feel that she might be smiling a little bit, going, oh, God, Jayne, do you have to? Yeah, well, I was very lucky to work with someone on that. So unfortunately, John's not here tonight. He's usually at every show. He's very much a part of this play. So he was the dramaturg, really he helped me. Well, we worked on it together. We worked on it as this organic process, and we never knew what it was going to be. In the beginning, we thought, let's meet once a week and we'll bring the book in and we'll see what we can find. Will it be a rehearsed reading, or will we get actors to come and perform the different roles? And so it just sort of slowly, I remember John being so frustrated with me because I was such a bad actor. He would get me to do sort of scenes and he'd be like, oh, God. So it sort of started to become more physical and a bit more, you know, things I could actually do a bit better. And he... You know, I would never, for example, have put the dream, that awful dream of the mum with the yellowed bones. I almost didn't put that in the book. It's so strange and awful. And he pulled it out. He said, "We've got to do this bit we've got to put this in the play." And I said, "Oh, yuck! What will I do?" So to answer your question, it was really through trial and error, and having had a year during lockdown to just mess around and see what things came to life. A lot of it has been added over time. The taxi driver wasn't there before, and it evolves every night. But I needed to work alongside someone to see outside how to structure the play. And it was really just through trial and error. Sometimes going, we'd made a cut last week, like that bit's just getting a bit flabby. We don't need it. Does that answer your question? Sort of. Yeah, sorry. It's a weird way of working. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, I do. I am a bit of I re-script it and then I don't do what I've scripted a lot. But actually, if you looked back over, so 2021 was when it was first performed. It was developed in 2020. The script from 2021, there's probably 20 script, well, maybe even more, 20 or 30 scripts that have been changed and edited along the way.
There's also that annotation of the book. Have you got the book with you that's got all of the writing in it, or is it a different one?
I've got this great. So the one that I've got has a bit of it in, but the Paris or Die. This is the B format with a new cover, but the first edition was the purple one with the Eiffel Tower on it. I didn't like it, but anyway. But inside it, I've written all these notes and scratches. It's like it's a massacre of a book.
Pretty scary.
It's kind of an artwork, yeah. Well, I've written in it like, don't fucking smile, fuck, because John will be like, here you've got to be thinking, fuck Paris. So I'm like, I'll write it in here because that will help me while I'm on stage. I'll be like, yeah, it's kind of scary. It's sort of like I don't know, like something from a horror film. Yeah. Sacrilegious. Yeah, I am going on Monday, actually. I did go back afterwards and live there and birthed and raised a child there, and I sort of slowly forgot the accident in some ways. I still have trouble. I remember my husband played a gig not long ago in the 20th, and I still get shivers if I go up to that part of Paris. I've sort of kept my life down the hill, but yeah, no, I still am very attached to the place, despite the guillotining.
Anybody else out there? Well, we might leave it there. Oh, that's sorry, there is one there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit mysterious. So this Reiki, he was a Reiki guy. And I was like, I've just, my mum's died. And I went to Paris, and he was like, Paris, you're going to Paris. And I was like, yeah. And literally I had written this really spurious email to the embassy saying, I dream of going to the Lecoq School in Paris. I don't have, it costs so much money. There's no way I could afford it. Is there a scholarship of some kind I could apply for? And a couple of weeks later, after I saw the guy, I got this email from the embassy saying, we are thinking of giving you a 2-year scholarship to go to the Lecoq School and a grant to pay for your 2 years there. It was like something fell from the sky. So yeah, he was right. The Reiki dude was like, I advise, go and see someone and just put it out there. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And honestly, that is something that it's just coming organically in the show. One of the things that I felt going back a stage in the development was it was a bit And then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And I really felt, and John as well, like there needs to be more of a build towards, I want you to understand why it happened. You know, like the state that this person, this young woman was in on the night she nearly died, you know, like because of the death of the mother, because of the theatre school and suddenly everybody's gone, because she's in this, doesn't want to go back to Australia because everything looks the same. You know, I want you to understand that. So it needs to build. The transitions need to grow something. I'm still working on that. I still find that a lot of that really hard. But that's where the play is. That's when it goes from being and then this is, you know, a stand-up show or something. Here's a joke. To but I think that's in the performance. Yeah. Yeah, I went to a theatre school in Melbourne called the National Theatre Drama School, which was 3 years, and it was excellent. And I really learned a lot about acting and how to act. And then I came out of the theatre school after 3 years and went, okay, I'm ready to act now. Great. Got an agent and just nothing. And you know, castings for stuff. And I remember just being so frustrated because we had done some performance making at the National, and that was, I loved it. And then my teacher did send me off to that Russian guy, and it was just like, this is what I need to be doing. I need to work this way, and I want to make my own shit. I don't want to be in the hands of the casting directors who are, I don't know how, I'm terrible in auditions. I've done all this training and I've got all this creativity, and I don't have any way, I have no idea how to put it together. So then at the Lecoq School, they have this thing called autocours, which is every week you have to get up in a group and perform a play or a piece of theatre that you've made to a theme. So on the Friday, they'll say, okay, next week is The Invisible Man, or Make Us Laugh, or Make Us Cry. Oh my God, it was so bad. I made them cry in my laughter and laugh in my crying, melodrama. But yeah, and so you became this instrument of, you know, and there's no given director, there's no given writer. You have to make a piece that works. And so it's this rigorous creative training, and that I just loved that. But I think having done the acting training first was really valuable as well. But then you need to learn how to do stuff with it. No, there's not enough work in Australia. It's like, 5 films a year or something? And it's,
Home and Away.
Yeah, and Home and Away. And yeah, I wasn't really suited. I remember going to Blue Heelers. It was always like the Blue Heelers guest roles. And I mean, you know, I would have loved one, but I didn't quite work.
Kind of glad it didn't work.
Yeah.
All right, we better wrap it up, everybody. Thank you so much, Jayne, for the performance, for chatting to us, for doing tomorrow. And please come along and see her tomorrow. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.